The arrival of the Titan the sky was dark over the city of New Oslo. Not because it was night, but because of the smoke. Tall buildings were broken like toys. Fires burned where homes used to be. The war had come too fast for Earth to prepare. Above the ruined streets, a strange sound echoed through the air. Boom, boom, boom. Footsteps, heavy ones. An 8-foot-tall alien walked down the road, stepping over broken cars and bodies. Her name was Commander Velraka, and she was a champion of the Zarketh Empire. She wore black armor that glowed red at the edges. Her 4 eyes scanned the ground like a hunter searching for prey. She was built like a monster, thick arms, long legs, and a face that looked like it was carved from stone. She smiled. "This planet falls today," she said in her deep voice, full of pride. Velraka looked up at the sky. Behind her, Zarketh warships floated like dark clouds. Her army had crushed 3 continents in 2 days. Now only one small human base remained, a final stronghold. One last resistance. "Commander," said a voice in her ear. "Satellite scans show only one life form near the target zone." One Velraka laughed. "You mean they send one soldier against me?" "Yes, Commander." She shook her head slowly, amused. "Poor humans. They still think they can win. No matter. I will finish this quickly." She marched toward the broken city center. Smoke curled around her armor. Buildings groaned as they fell behind her. But then she stopped. There in the middle of the street stood a man. He looked so small, just 6 feet tall, wearing plain combat gear, a helmet, a rifle slung over his back. No special armor, no glowing alien tech. Just a human. Velraka narrowed her eyes. The man didn't move. He didn't raise a weapon. He just stood there, calm, hands at his sides. Then he raised one hand and waved. Velraka blinked. Was he mocking her? "Human," she called. Her voice shook the windows. "Do you not understand what stands before you?" The man tilted his head. "I see a tall alien with a loud voice." "That about right?" Velraka growled. She stepped closer. "I am Velraka, Slayer of 9 worlds, General of the Burning Legion. What are you?" The man smiled. "Just a Marine." She laughed. A deep, cold sound. "You are alone," he shrugged. "So are you." Velraka frowned. "I command an army." "But they're not here," he said. "Just you and me." She clenched her fists. "You mock me." He looked around at the destroyed city. "You destroyed our homes, killed millions, and now you want fear." I stepped forward. "I don't have fear left to give." Velraka's eyes burned. "Then give me your life." She lunged forward with a roar, her fist crashing down where he stood. Boom. The ground shook. Dust filled the air. She grinned, weak. But then she heard it. Behind her, a voice. "You missed." She spun around. The Marine stood there, not even breathing hard. "You're fast," she admitted. "You're slow." He replied. Velraka snarled. She moved faster now, slashing, swinging, stomping. Each attack was like thunder. But he danced around her, always just out of reach. This was no normal soldier. She stopped for a moment, panting. "You? What are you?" The Marine looked her in the eye. "I'm what happens when humans are backed into a corner." He walked past a burning car. Flames lit his face. "We're not special, not magical, but we learn. We adapt. And when we have nothing left, we fight harder." Velraka tightened her grip on her blade. "Then die with honor." The Marine pulled out a small knife, not a gun, not a bomb. Just a knife. She blinked. "That's it." "You bring a blade to fight me?" "Ah." He turned the knife slowly in his hand. I don't need more. He ran toward her fast. Too fast. She brought her sword down with full force. He slid under it. Then he was behind her again. A small cut opened. On her leg, she looked down, shocked. He had touched her. Hurt her, even if it was small. Her pride cracked, just a little. The Marine stood calmly. That's a warning. Valraka roared again. But deep inside, something had changed. It's human. Was different, dangerous, and suddenly... She wasn't so sure this would be easy. The human Marine arrived smoke still hung in the air like a thick curtain. The buildings around them were cracked and broken. Fire burned quietly in the ruins. The city was dead, but this battlefield was... Just beginning to wake up, Commander Valraka stood tall. Her armor was heavy and covered in scratches from past wars. Her glowing red eyes stayed fixed on the strange human in front of her. He was calm, too calm. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't run. He just stared at her, like he was thinking, measuring her. "What's your name, human?" she demanded. The man wiped dust from his face with one gloved hand. "Name's Keller," he said. "Sergeant, Earth Forces." "That rank means nothing now," Valraka said, stepping forward. Her voice echoed. "Your armies are broken. Your cities lie in ruins. You stand alone." Keller looked down the street at the ruins around them. "Yeah, that's true." Valraka tilted her head. "Then why do you smile?" Keller met her gaze. His eyes were calm, but sharp like knives. "Because you don't get it. You think we lost? You think this is over?" He took a slow step forward. "But I'm still here." Valraka raised one hand and pointed at him. "You are one man," he nodded. "That's all it takes." She let out a growl. Her muscles tensed. Her hands twitched like she wanted to crush him now. But something stopped her. This wasn't just a soldier. Something about him was ... wrong. Or maybe right. He didn't fear her. He didn't react like the others. No panic, no anger. Just quiet, steady control. "How many aliens have you fought?" "Before?" she asked. Keller cracked his neck and stretched his fingers. "Lost count. You're lying, maybe." She stepped forward. The ground trembled under her boots. "You should beg." "For what?" "For mercy." Keller looked up at the giant alien. "You came here thinking you were a god?" "I've seen gods bleed." Valraka paused. That line had hit something inside her. A flicker of confusion. She had faced resistance before, but not like this. Not from a man standing alone with no backup, no tanks, no ships. Just a knife and a smile. She needed to understand. "What is wrong with your kind?" she said. "Why do you fight like this, when you know you will lose?" Keller didn't answer right away. He knelt beside a broken earth flag lying in the rubble. He picked it up, brushed the dust off, and held it in his hand for a second before folding it neatly. Then he stood. "We don't fight because we think we'll win," he said quietly. "We fight because we can't accept chains. Even if we lose, we fight standing." Valraka's voice lowered. "I've seen your kind die, screaming, crying, begging. And I've seen yours die shocked," Keller replied. "Because you thought we'd break. We don't." For a moment, neither moved. The wind pushed smoke past them. Valraka slowly opened her fingers. "I was told Earth was weak, that humans were soft." "Some are," Keller said, "but not the ones you meet on your last day." The tension snapped like a wire. She launched forward, again this time, faster, harder. Her blade swung in a wide arc, aiming to cut him in half. Keller ducked. The blade slammed into a car behind him, cutting it clean in two. Metal flew through the air. Keller rolled, came up low, and kicked her knee. It did nothing, barely moved her leg. But he wasn't trying to knock her down. He was learning. He moved again, fast, smooth. His movements weren't just fast. They were practiced, controlled, measured. Valraka's next attack was a punch. Keller stepped aside. Her fist missed by inches and slammed into a wall. The stone cracked. "You're strong," he said. "But you're not a killer. You're a conqueror. You fight to control. I fight to survive." She roared and lunged again, this time grabbing him. He struggled in her grip, held tight in her giant hand. She lifted him off the ground. "You talk too much," she said. Keller smirked. "Yeah, people say that." Then he pulled a small object from his belt, a round disc. He slapped it onto her chest. Armor click. She looked down. What boom! The small explosive went off. Not powerful enough to kill, but strong enough to blind her for 2 seconds and send her stumbling backward. Keller hit the ground hard, rolled, and got back up. She shook her head, rage in her eyes. Her chest plate was cracked now. A piece of her armor had broken off. The human had wounded her. Again, Valraka stared at Keller, now breathing a little heavier. Her heart pounded. "You're not just a soldier," she said. Keller nodded once. "Nope. Then what are you?" "I'm the lesson you didn't study." First, strike. The air shimmered with heat and smoke. Rubble surrounded them like the bones of a dead city. Fires still burned in the windows of old buildings. The sound of distant sirens had stopped. Now only 2 figures remained, one massive, armored alien and one silent human. Keller stood still, his breath steady. A fresh scratch ran across his cheek. His gear was torn in places, dust coating his shoulders. Commander Valraka wiped a smear of black fluid, her blood from the cracked armor on her chest. She had never been wounded in battle, not once, until today. "You're making me angry," she said, her voice low and dangerous. Keller said nothing. "You think you're clever, little man," she hissed. "But strength wins wars." He finally spoke. "You think this is war?" He glanced around. "This is survival." She charged. Her huge frame moved like a tank, but with deadly speed. She raised her arm and brought it down like a hammer. Keller dived to the side, just in time. The ground where he stood exploded, chunks of pavement flying. Before she could turn, he rolled forward, slicing at the back of her knee with his combat knife. Sparks flew. It left a thin mark, not deep, but enough to sting. Valraka spun, snarling. Her massive foot kicked out. Keller blocked with both arms, was thrown backward, and smashed through a car windshield. He didn't get up. Valraka smiled for the first time. "Now we end this." She stomped toward him. Smoke and dust curled around her like a storm. She raised her blade again, but the car behind her beep, beep, beep. She turned too late. Boom. The car exploded in a controlled blast. Keller had armed it before she even noticed. The shockwave knocked her down, her heavy armor smashing into the street. Keller rose from the broken glass, limping now, but alive. Valraka lay in the crater, breathing hard, armor glowing from the heat. She pushed herself up, furious. "You cheat. You use tricks." Keller wiped blood from his chin. "You brought an army to fight farmers and kids. Don't talk to me about fairness." She charged again, this time faster. Keller pulled a flash grenade from his vest, threw it, and closed his eyes. FWOO. The white light blinded her for a moment. She stumbled, swinging wildly. Keller dashed forward, jumping onto a pile of rubble, then onto her back. He grabbed one of the armor joints on her shoulder and stabbed the blade deep into the gap. She screamed. Her body shook violently, trying to throw him off. He held on for a second longer, twisted the knife, then leaped off before she could grab him. Velraka fell to one knee, groaning. He had done it again, hurt her, controlled her, and now humiliated her. She glared at him, her pride bleeding, faster than her wounds. "You're just a man," she shouted. "And you're just muscle," Keller replied. "I've fought better." Her breath came faster now. Not from pain, from doubt. Keller kept walking slowly toward her, circling. "You thought Earth would be easy," he said. "We don't have lasers. We don't fly. But we've lived with fear for centuries. We don't run from it. We sharpen our teeth on it." Velraka stood back up, swaying slightly. "Enough," she spat. "You talk like a leader, but you are only one." Keller stopped walking. "That's all I need to be." Suddenly, she roared and grabbed a large piece of concrete from the ground. She threw it with all her might. Keller didn't dodge. Instead, he dropped flat, the concrete flying just inches over him. The next second, he popped up with a small object in hand, a signal jammer. He pressed a button. Velraka's armor lights blinked, then flickered off. She froze. "What did you do?" "I watched your soldiers use that same tech. It talks to your ship, tracks your heart rate, predicts your next strike. But now it's deaf, and so are your friends." Velraka stared at him. Her fingers twitched. Her breathing slowed. She was alone. For real. No comms. No scan. No support. Keller said, "Now you fight like us." She looked down at her blade. Her armor still worked, but something deeper had cracked. Not just her gear, not just her pride, her certainty. Keller stood across from her, back straight, bleeding, bruised, breathing hard but ready. She didn't charge this time. She just stared. Silence fell again. For the first time in her life, Commander Velraka didn't know how the fight would end. Secrets of the Marine, the battlefield, had grown quiet. Its fire still burned, and the air still carried the bitter smell of smoke and metal. But neither Keller nor Velraka moved. They stood across from each other, weapons in hand, silence between them like a wall. For the first time, the alien commander didn't attack. She simply stared at the human. Her mind was no longer full of confidence. It was full of questions. "You fight like no one I've seen before," she said finally. "You don't act like a soldier." Keller nodded slightly. "I'm not just a soldier." "Then what are you?" He looked at her for a long time. Then, slowly, he sat on a chunk of broken concrete. He wiped the dirt off his hands and stared at the ground. "I was born during a war," he said quietly. Velraka raised an eyebrow. "Most of your kind were." "Yeah, but mine never ended." He glanced up at her. "I grew up in the remains of a burned city. Food was rationed. Lights came on for 1 hour a day. My first toy was a gas mask." She said nothing. "My parents were scientists, not fighters. But they died in a refugee camp during an outbreak. I was 10. He tapped the side of his helmet. "After that, I learned everything I needed to survive. Not from books, from pain, from fire. From the way people change when they're starving and scared." Velraka shifted her stance. "That is not a warrior's training. That is survival." Keller looked up. His eyes were sharp, now hard as steel. "You don't understand, do you? You think soldiers are born in training camps. Humans are different. Our soldiers are born in the ashes." Velraka folded her arms. "You speak like your suffering makes you special." He stood. "It doesn't make us special. It makes us dangerous." He stepped closer. "You aliens conquer planets with fleets, with plasma cannons and AI drones. But we built our world by crawling through the mud, choking on smoke, and dragging ourselves forward, inch by inch." She scowled. Your world is weak, cracked, and yet, cute bleed, he said softly. And I'm still standing. Line stung more than any blade. Valraka looked down at the damage on her armor, at the cut across her side, at the crack in her knee joint. Her fingers curled into fists. She hated weakness, but more than that, she feared doubt. And it had crept into her mind like poison. You fight like someone with nothing left to lose, she said. Keller's voice dropped to a whisper. I fight like someone who's lost everything before and won't lose again. A moment passed. Valraka's voice was quieter now. Why do you still resist? Your people are scattered. Your cities fall. You cannot win this war. We're not trying to win it today, Keller said. We're trying to survive it long enough for tomorrow. She shook her head. You humans are stubborn. Call it what you want, he said. But that's why we're still here. You see, your empire fights to prove it's strong. We fight because we have no choice. Valraka took a slow breath. Your world is small, broken, and yet your heart burns like it belongs to giants. Keller looked her in the eye. That's the secret, Commander. We don't need to be the biggest or the smartest. We just have to keep going, and we're very, very good at that. She didn't reply. The silence grew heavier. Then Valraka looked at her blade. She twirled it once in her massive hand. You want to teach me about pain? She said. Fine, show me. She stepped forward again. This time, slower, controlled. Not in rage, but respect. Keller took his stance. His hands gripped his knife tightly. Let's see if you can keep up. Their second clash began. Valraka slashed sideways. Keller ducked and cut upward, catching her arm. She growled and kicked, but he spun away. He moved like water flowing, shifting, changing directions with ease. She came again, this time more carefully. He blocked her blade with a metal pipe from the ground, letting it shatter. Then used the distraction to land a punch to her jaw. She stumbled back. You're learning, Keller said, breathing hard. So are you, Valraka growled. They circled again, both warriors now covered in blood, dust, and sweat. They weren't just fighting each other. They were learning each other, measuring, respecting, and underneath it all, fearing, because both of them finally realized the same thing. This wasn't just a battle between two soldiers, it was the test of two worlds. Valraka's rage. The sun had begun to set, casting a deep orange light over the ruined city. Long shadows stretched across broken buildings and streets littered with debris. The air was heavy. Not just with smoke but with something else. Tension. Valraka stood in the middle of the street, her massive chest rising and falling. Black blood ran down her arm. Her blade was chipped. The glowing red lights on her armor flickered weakly. Keller was 30 feet away, crouched behind a fallen pillar. His left arm was cut. His right eye was nearly swollen shut, but he wasn't shaking. His breathing was steady. They had been fighting for over 15 minutes now. Neither had won, but something inside Valraka had started to crack. Not her body, her patience. This is a waste of time, she snarled. You should be dead. She raised her blade and slammed it into the concrete. Boom. A shockwave ripped through the street, shaking the ground. Keller barely rolled away in time. Rubble fell behind him. Dust filled the air. His ears rang, he coughed, and stood up slowly. You're strong, he said, but you're getting sloppy. Valraka's eyes burned. You mock me again? I'm telling you the truth. You're faster when you're calm. Now you're swinging wild. Her lips pulled back in a snarl. You think I need calm to destroy you? He took a slow breath. No. I think you need control to survive me. That did it. Something inside her snapped with a roar. She activated her armor's core. Red light exploded from the lines on her suit. Energy surged through her limbs. Her muscles swelled. Her blade glowed brighter. Keller narrowed his eyes. "What is that?" Velraka's voice was deeper now. It echoed, "This is my rage core. Limiters removed. Power at full." Keller stepped back. "That sounds like a mistake." She didn't wait. She launched forward like a missile. Her first strike sent a car flying. The second cracked the pavement. In half, Keller dodged, ducked, rolled, barely keeping up. She was a blur now. Every hit was faster, harder. One strike slammed into his side, throwing him into a wall. He hit hard, coughing up blood. Velraka didn't stop. She crushed the ground where he had fallen but missed. He rolled again. Her blade cut into the wall where his head had been. Keller ran, weaving through the wreckage. She chased, shouting. "Stop running." "I'm not running," he called back. "I'm reading. Reading." He turned a corner, limping. Your attacks. Your breathing. Your speed. She was getting faster. Yes, but also more predictable. He ducked into a blown-out building, climbing the stairs with effort. Velraka followed, tearing through walls. She didn't need doors now. She made her own. On the top floor, Keller stopped. He stood near a large hole in the side of the building. The city below burned red. Velraka climbed up through the floor. Her armor now glowing white-hot. Nowhere left to go. He nodded. "Good. I hate running anyway." She stepped forward. "Any last words, human?" "Yeah." He pointed behind her. "You're overheating." She blinked. Smoke was rising from the back of her armor. One of the cooling vents was cracked. "Too much power? Too fast?" Keller smiled. "I told you rage was a mistake." Velraka lunged, but her steps were slower now. He sidestepped and grabbed a loose pipe, smashing it into her vent. Sparks flew. The glow dimmed. She staggered. He followed up, striking again. She slashed with her blade, barely missing. He ducked under it, slammed his shoulder into her waist, and drove her backward right into the hole. Her foot slipped. She fell 5 stories down. Keller limped to the edge and looked over. Velraka lay at the bottom, buried under debris. She wasn't moving. He waited. 1 second, 2, 3. Then a large hand pushed the rubble aside. She rose, slowly. Her armor was fried. Her blade was cracked. Her breath came in painful gasps. She looked up at him. Not with rage, with shock. Keller looked down, blood running from his mouth. "You're still standing." "Good, so am I." She didn't answer. She couldn't. Her body had reached the limit. Her mind had hit the wall. She had used every advantage strength. Armor, alien tech, and still, this human survived. Worse. He fought smart. He stayed calm. He made her bleed, made her fall. And somehow, he looked stronger now than when the fight started. Something inside. Velraka whispered a new word. Fear, not of death, but of losing. Asterisk, the turning point, the battlefield, had changed. It was no longer just broken streets and burning buildings. Now, it was quiet. Almost peaceful. As if the city itself was holding its breath. Commander Velraka stood in the center of the street, her chest rising and falling. Her armor was cracked open at the sides. Her rage core had shut down. The glowing lights were gone. Her blade dragged. Behind her, too heavy now. She looked up at the ruined building where Keller had stood moments before. He wasn't there. She turned slowly. He was walking toward her again. Not running, not attacking. Just walking, covered in blood. Limping, breathing. Hard, but still standing. Velraka's knees ached. Her vision blurred. Every step felt like walking through mud. Yet her pride screamed at her to stay tall. She clenched her jaw. "Why don't you fall?" Keller didn't stop walking. Because I've fallen before. I got back up every time. Velraka's voice was quieter now. You should be dead. Keller paused a few feet away from her. Maybe, but I'm not. And you're starting to ask why. She said nothing. He looked at her, eyes tired but sharp. You want to understand? Fine. Let me explain. He slowly sat down on a chunk of debris. Velraka didn't attack. She couldn't. I've seen death, Keller said. Not just on the battlefield. In refugee camps, in hospitals with no power. In the eyes of kids holding empty bowls. Our world taught us pain before we learned to fight. Velraka blinked. So you learned through suffering? No, Keller said. We learned through endurance. Through holding on when nothing made sense. When the leaders lied, when the skies burned, when hope ran out, we didn't. He looked up at her. That's the real strength of humanity. Not our tech, not our weapons. Just one thing. She stared. What? Our refusal to break. For a moment, Velraka said nothing. Her mind swirled with memories. Victories. Battles where she crushed armies with one hand. Wars where cities surrendered before the first shot. She had trained for glory, for dominance, for perfection. And yet this human, this tired, wounded man stood in front of her, alive and unbeaten. Not because he was stronger, but because he never stopped fighting. You believe that's enough? She asked. Keller nodded. For us, it always has been. She sat down slowly, dropping her blade beside her. Her hands trembled slightly. I was bred for battle, she said. I trained on the moons of Droska, fought in the pit of fire. My people made me a weapon. She looked at him, her voice softer than ever. And yet, here I am, losing. Keller didn't smile. He didn't mock her. He just listened. Velraka touched the broken edge of her armor. I thought strength meant crushing your enemy. I never expected this. This isn't a loss, Keller said. This is the part where you decide who you really are. She narrowed her eyes. What do you mean? You're at the edge. You've done all you were trained to do. And it wasn't enough. So now the question is, do you fall, or do you rise as something new? Velraka looked away. I don't know what that means. It means stop fighting for pride, Keller said. Fight for truth, for choice, for something real. Long silence passed. Then Velraka stood. Her body shook, but she stayed upright. Keller didn't move. She raised her chin. Not with arrogance, but with clarity. For the first time, she said, I don't know what happens next. Keller stood too. Good. That's where real change begins. She looked down at him. You are not what I was taught humans are, and you're not what I expected either, he said. But maybe that's the point. They stood in silence again. No weapons raised. No anger. Just two warriors breathing the same air. Watching the sun lower behind a cracked skyline. A voice suddenly crackled in Velraka's earpiece. Commander Velraka, respond. Report your victory. She reached up to touch her cum, but stopped. She looked at Keller, then she slowly removed the device and dropped it. On the ground and crushed it under her heel, Keller watched her carefully. You sure? She nodded. For the first time in my life, I'm not a weapon. I'm a person. He gave a quiet nod. Velraka looked toward the east, where her ship waited in the sky. They won't understand. They don't have to, Keller said. You do? The fire in the city had begun to dim. Ash drifted gently in the air like snow. The war, for now, had paused. But something bigger had started. Two enemies were no longer enemies. They were witnesses to each other's truth. And what comes after truth is choice. She kneels. The sky was quiet now. The fires had burned low. Wind moved through the broken city like a whisper, carrying ash and dust. It was the sound of a battlefield. After the storm, Commander Velraka stood motionless. Her armor was broken. Her weapons were useless. Her breath came in slow, shaky waves, and in front of her stood a human, tired, wounded, but still holding his ground. Sergeant Keller, the human who had not only survived her power, but had broken something far deeper. Not her bones, her beliefs. For a long time, she said nothing. Then finally, she asked, "What happens now?" Keller didn't speak right away. He looked at her with tired eyes. "That depends on you." Velraka's voice was softer than it had ever been. "I don't want to fight anymore." "You don't have to." She looked up at the sky. Her warship still hovered in orbit, waiting for orders. They didn't know what had happened down here. Not really to them. She was still the undefeated Titan, the warrior who crushed Earth's last line of defense. But that wasn't the truth. The truth was standing right in front of her, bloodied, calm. "Human, I was told humans would beg for life," she said. Keller shook his head. "No, we beg for peace, but we bleed for freedom." She closed her eyes. "If I return to the fleet, they'll send another, maybe 10 more. Then don't return as their weapon," Keller said. "Return as something else." Her jaw tightened. "You ask me to betray my empire?" "No," he replied quietly. "I'm asking you to lead it. Differently?" Silence. Then Velraka did something no one on Earth had ever seen. She stepped forward. Then slowly, she went down on one knee. The sound of her armor hitting the ground echoed through the broken city. Keller didn't move. "I kneel," she said, not with shame, but with strength. "Not because you defeated me with force, but because you showed me something stronger than fear." Keller stood still, stunned, her head bowed. "I kneel because you stood alone and reminded me what power truly is." For a long moment, the world seemed frozen. Then Keller stepped closer. He didn't raise a weapon. He didn't mock her. He simply reached out and helped her up. She took his hand. Together, they stood. And in that moment, two enemies became something greater. Not allies. Not friends. Equals just across the sky. The Zarkith ship began transmitting. "Commander Velraka, respond. Status report required. Target city status." Velraka touched the side of her helmet, then slowly turned it off for good. "No more lies," she said. Keller nodded. "So what now?" She looked at him. "I return to them, but not as I was. They will hear the truth. They might not listen. They will," she said. "Because I will make them." Keller gave a faint smile. "That's very human of you." She raised an eyebrow. "Is that an insult?" He laughed once. "No. It's the highest compliment we have." Velraka walked toward the east, where her ship had begun to descend. A small shuttle touched down. Kicking up dust before she boarded, she turned one last time. "Keller," he looked up. "Today, you changed me." He didn't answer. Just gave her a nod. She stepped into the shuttle. As it rose into the sky, Keller watched it disappear into the clouds. Then he sat down on a pile of rubble and leaned back. Closing his eyes, he finally allowed himself to rest. Across Earth, the last battle report was never sent. No death count was confirmed. No medals were handed out. But a message began to spread. An 8-foot alien had come to crush Earth's last defender and left. Kneeling not because of weapons, not because of war, because of one human who refused to break. Epilogue. Months later, in a chamber high above the Zarkith capital, Velraka stood before the High Council. They looked down on her, cold, powerful, ready to dismiss her failure. "You did not destroy Earth," one of them hissed. "No," she said. "I learned from it." The chamber grew tense. She stepped forward. "I knelt before a human." Gasps echoed through the room. "But not in defeat," she continued. In honor? In choice. Silence, Vel'Rakah looked them in. The eye. We don't need to fear humanity. We need to learn from them. Why? The eldest asked. She smiled. Because they are not strong by nature. They are strong by choice. And if we keep testing them, they will make us kneel too.